Okay, I think we're live. Just asking about audio levels. My my headset's responding correctly to tell me whether I'm muted or not, at least. Um, I can go through and probably get the built-in. In fact, I need to align this this window. That's why it was so far over. Ah, okay. I may have to take that back as I go through and make adjustments later on. Thank you, John, for telling me the audio is good. Um, and so I've got more Thinkpads in the van, but going through to uh, I want to get at least one system. Nothing wrong with the Windows 98 system that I have here that we use to establish terminal sessions into the 2210. But I wanted something with XP, in particular, the kind of the way that I'm thinking now. And I last night I was kind of hovering on the just the aspect of, okay, what is going to be the stream for tomorrow? What am I prepared to do? And I found some battery holders, and amazingly, the first package I set aside of the battery holders um, for bringing up here today, I put those off to the side somewhere. I don't know where those are. And I've got a package with not that I can't buy more, but I've got a package with brand new coin cells anyway, the 2032. And so to get looking at the mechanics for going through and working with the battery on the Cisco, still want to work with a little bit with the 2210. And we got to a certain point, and I got thinking, and I was just pinging some stuff off of John. The one aspect I'm thinking of is routing. And the I was wanting to bring up the DHCP. In fact, what I'll do is I need to get the PCMCA adapter in there as well. I've got the hub started up, got the NetFini connected, and I brought in. We can probably try. Well, let's go through. Let's get the other card that I just spent all this time winding up the cable for. And that's the other thing that's kind of disturbing me is that I've got I found my main token ring stuff that I've moved around, but I've got the more PCMCA adapters for token ring and the cables that are, I mean, I've got so many of those, and I wanted to use those at a different location last night for testing another MAW, and I can't find them. I knew that I had the ones up here. I had to make a trip up here to grab these, the few I had here, the few examples. And that uh, the I just need to locate the container with more of these. Now before, and I thought about even the aspect of going back to the thin client stuff because there's some videos I need to do on the thin clients. And the one thing that I kind of spotted last night that made me think about ThinkPads again is this is the unit that has the power term, the terminal emulation for 5250. And I don't have the site-to-site VPN set up yet between home and here where I have my AS400. But thin clients for all that, and who knows, I could pull out a thin client too, just to go through and get into that. I'm not really set up. I've got the screen and everything else. I've got thin clients up here, but I didn't go through and prep. I think I'll just focus on the aspect of the power term. And I thought what would be really great once we get the routing working for this. I mean, the intention is even to get it to where I could get on power term in this case, or go through token ring to ultimately get on my AS400, which is an interesting concept because, of course, I don't have any token ring. I have the Ethernet adapter on my AS400. So I thought that that'd be an interesting aspect to even get remotely where I'm able to use token ring to get onto my S400. And conceivably, that should be just a factor of a route. Now, to kind of go over some of the things, I haven't made any changes since the live stream. In fact, I don't even think I've been up here other than to collect the token ring adapters last night in the last week. I haven't actually been in the studio, made any adjustments or anything like that to the the setup that was here. The 2210 in particular, of course, haven't worked with the Cisco at all. Haven't had it fired up. So the one aspect to the subnets that we're trying to set up, I'm trying to set up token ring on its particular a particular subnet, independent from the Ethernet subnet that exists that we're bridging to. And we got that set up. We have the ping set up so we can ping across that interface, but typically no further. And so the concept of having a router in there, you always have to have a router to go between. This is not transparent bridging. That's not simple bridging. You always need a router to go between subnets. And that would happen even in the same context for if it was two Ethernet networks. Now, one of the things you can do, and in particular, the Windows 98, the reason I kind of put it off to the side, went with Windows XP, is you can go through and you can add routes to a system. Okay, so in other words, you have a system on a subnet, it's got actually a path out. And although a router could be handled, and there may be routers in the mix, you may have to add route statements onto your systems just so that they know the path when you access a particular thing. And in those routes, you can break them down to where you can do addressing to, for this IP, you go this way. For this IP address, you go that way. Now, I could do it with DNS. I could have DNS entries in my power term here, like I can do with my, in fact, one of the things I want to do here early on, in fact, let's do this. Before we even switch over to token ring, I don't even have the token ring adapter in the ThinkPad right now. This is connected. This ThinkPad running Windows XP is connected to Ethernet right now. So all the Ethernet functionality works, and we have the ability. I guess I should go through and test this before I open my mouth or anything like that. Um, let's try. I could try my own domain as well. But there's the Arden tool. And I was thinking even to where we may get switched over to get this on. I may go through and get everything. Let me give me a chance to adjust some screens here. And I guess everybody else is lurking, which is fine. I want to go through and I want to. We're going to do a window to the. I don't know why I'm. Why that. The alignment for this, especially this 4.3, I'm chopped at the top, and we can do that. That the ThinkPad, and I've got the this is actually the T40, one of my T40s, and really nice aspect ratio on them to be this 4:3. And although that doesn't come across, of course, to widescreens and things like that quite as well. Who knows? There's something with the clear click on how that alignment is for the screen. But I can go through and we can see a good enough percentage of the screen. So we are live on that. The other aspect is to, let's go through and bring up the power term. Now, and go through and ignore some other, I should go through and actually remove the other entries here. But I've got this set up, and I used this from home last night over Ethernet to go through and connect on, just like one of my thin clients with the power term, since it only uses port 23. And at home, I, of course, could go through crossing the network. I have more control of the port numbers and things like that. We've gone through on previous times and talked about that telnet being very simple since I control both ends. Now, that communication is in clear text, so we want to be very careful with that aspect. But the fact is that we could go through and we could use this power term to go through and establish a session on my AS400 a mile away going over the internet. Now, this is set up for the internal address. One of the things I did do with my thin clients is I set up DNS, and this should function over the, and I don't have to do capitalization or anything else here. I'm just actually doing this. You can personalize it. Capitalization does not matter in this instance of a DNS entry. So I'm going through and actually giving what resolves from my DNS, not to even put in my public side IP address in there for the host name, because I have this being able to resolve. And I could actually go through and even pull up like an NS lookup on the screen, or I could go through and ping. It would tell me the IP address of this. So I'm reaching out. I mean, I'm going through ahead of going through and plugging in the and the other aspect I want to make sure of, and we got an IP, but I do want to make sure that I didn't do anything. I didn't set any static address or anything like that last night. Okay, so all this appears to be dynamic with the way that I have my Ethernet network set up here. Now, I don't know who Steve is. This is I don't even have to put in any password or anything else on this XP station. It's got the drivers loaded. So the thing is, I buy these things secondhand. I'm not going to go through and change the OS. I go through, I do remove personalized documents that are of no use to me, but I'm not going through and change around the system and reloading the OS, because then you lose drivers and things like that. And that's pretty critical for the fact of IBM selling off the PC and the ThinkPad series. And the ThinkPads were one of the later systems that were still being manufactured in the United States, but going through and being sold to Lenovo of the transition of the support websites. And before, you could go through, when it was IBM, of course, you could get information, still can get information on older IBM systems, and even an online site that to go through and update drivers and things like that at the time. When that passed to Lenovo, there's actually some models in the middle, including the ThinkCenter line, that are just not covered well. If they'd been fully IBM, they'd be covered at the IBM website. If they're fully Lenovo, they would be covered at the Lenovo site, but they're transition models, and they're just kind of in between, and it doesn't go through to find those drivers as you could in the past. So we're seeing that dynamic address. I should have DNS set up. I could go through and I could even ping in real time that DNS resolution that I have. I'm just going to trust that it's going to work. We're going to save that. Okay, so it's going to actually put in a different session. Okay, we're still set for everything else. I believe we've got everything in there, otherwise correct. Let's just try a connect. And bam, we're in. And that was nice. I went through with the DNS resolution. I could go through and I could have a public site IP address that goes through, that I'm able to get on my system. I'm going to go through and kind of mask. And even the AS400s are really nice because they don't go through and display the password, of course. They do show the length of it as you type with that block cursor moving. But gives my previous sign on. And so there I'm on my AS400 at a mile away, remotely through this particular profile level, which goes through and doesn't list the number 5, the programming menu. But this is great. And again, I mean, the screen alignment is out. We're going to go through and we're going to look at system messages. Now the display 01, and I think this message stems from a system console. I think it's display 1 ultimately, or how it resolves. If it has a root console, a system console, And this is just the nature of this message is actually just because the the console is powered down. And I went through, I don't think I fired up any of the Twinax terminals last night, but so it's been a while since I think I've had a Twinax terminal on, but this may be marking some other reason. And I didn't even see what time frame it's talking about. It's talking about the 27th at 1 in the morning. So this is probably just in effect a a root message, a notification message that really doesn't have any impact otherwise. But so we have clearly we have the session working through where we can remote in. I mean, like I say, it would be excellent. Now I would have to go through, and this is just like, I mean, it's so close, of course, to the power term on the thin clients as well. But so for this, now let's see, it should bring up. Okay, so we saved. I'm trying to think of how to get back. If this will just bring back. Okay, it didn't drop me back into the power term software. It exited completely. I was wanting to go through and review this because as we go through, I mean, we could even go through and put a route statement in on the system to how it knows to route. And I'm going to have to go through and actually put in my public site IP as well. And I may actually shift back in screens to do that. Just to preserve a little bit of privacy as far as my public site IP address, because as I go through that, if I route through token ring here, it will not have that DNS resolution that I have on the Ethernet side. Now I could go through on the DHCP server and I could probably lay out some routing as well. And just for the fact that it picks up it gets the IP address, it's getting that gateway address from the DHCP server. And let's go through. I want to let's first do an IP config again. Now I'm taking for that these PCMCA are hot swap. In other words, we can go through and we can plug in the adapter. It should be recognized. I don't know if I've had this particular adapter in this particular system before. I've got this patched in to the token ring hub, the A239. Now I'm getting, and the other thing, okay, so that's wireless networks. The other thing too, besides Windows 98, as we saw, the Windows 98 looked like it had trouble, and as it is, as I say, you go through and you add the route statement on Windows 98, it wants to go through and reboot for those things to take effect. XP, it's going to be a little bit more dynamic. You don't have to go through a reboot to add and work with routes. As well as XP is able to work with more than one network interface at the same time. We saw on the Windows 98 system, once we went over to Token Ring, that Ethernet's dead. And for testing Token Ring, of course, we would unplug the Ethernet. I don't have any Thinkpads that don't have that built-in Ethernet. So that would be the effect. We just would have that Ethernet network hanging off there, even if we're not using it, if we're going through Token Ring. Now, this may have gone through, and everything being equal, could have even set up the Token Ring completely on the fly here. Of course, it did name it local area connection. And I like to keep it split because I do have that Ethernet network labeled. And we can see here that it went through, it's connected, everything else. If we go through and rename it, just for the purposes of, and I learned last night, there's a ring that they're associating with biometrics. And this thing looks like a big old clunky thing, but it's being offered on the market, and they're calling that the Token Ring. So we're going to start to see, if you go to tokenring.com, it pulls up that information. And it's funny that we're going to go through and we're going to evolve into a new use of the Token Ring term in that regard. So let's go through. So I've got it labeled as Token Ring now, and it's got it fully connected, everything else. I want to go through. I do have the hub powered up. Excuse me, the 2210. As I say, I've got my 8239, my Token Ring hub powered up, where this is connected into. I want to go through and let's just minimize that. So on the IP config, let's look at that again. And so it identifies the wireless. And I think that last entry, that Ethernet adapter network connect adapter, I think that's the built-in Ethernet port. I do have this ThinkPad in a dock right now, and that actually gives me, I had to look on the back of that, but that actually gives me a serial connection for getting into the 2210 as well. So maybe even more, allows for even more. So there we have the Token Ring, and even to where that default gateway. And as we remember, as we said, that that we have the Ethernet side of that 2210 set to an otherwise similar address, a 10.1.0.51. So we should be able to ping. We're able to ping the Token Ring side, of course. Okay. So let's do a repeat of that. Let's go through and 0. Okay, so that's the Ethernet side of the 2210. So we can ping across the interface. A lot of the time when we're trying to ping otherwise, for an instance of trying to ping my gateway address that I have, I'm able to do that. Now, we weren't able to do that on the Windows 98 system, as I remember. I'm gonna have to review that video. This might be really interesting. Might be that going through. I'm going to have to look at that. I'm going to have to look at that. I'm going to have to review that video. This might be really interesting. Might be that going through. 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 Going thro So let's look at this. Let's go through and we could disconnect easily enough. We could disconnect the Ethernet interface of this. Because this could gain ahead of myself because I didn't think of things. I should have people speaking up in chat. I tried pinging my gateway here on the Ethernet side. People didn't go through and correct me to say, well, David, you still have the Ethernet connected. So it's actually using the Ethernet interface of the Thinkpad to ping that host. Now let's go through. As I say, my live streams, even my videos otherwise, are warts and all. I go through and I make mistakes. We learn from those mistakes. So I've got the Ethernet interface unplugged now. Media state is disconnected for the Ethernet. And then, of course, the wireless is disconnected as well. So I only have the token ring interface going now. Now, we could go through, we can still ping, of course, the token ring side. We can ping the Ethernet side. Come on. Oh, I'm pressing shift instead of enter. Okay. But it probably won't be able to ping. Now, IPs otherwise, let's talk about this. It's able to ping 10.1.0.51, the Ethernet interface of the 2210. Okay, so 10.1.0.1 is the Ethernet interface that now is only reachable through traversing across the 2210. And it's on the same subnet as 10.1.0.51. So why do you need a route statement to resolve just to a different IP address that's on the same subnet? I think this will fail. Yeah, it's timing out. So there's still some routing issues, and I don't think the route statement can be used because we could set up, but the system is not going to. It's not going to be well. It may not know that it needs to go through that token ring interface to be bridged over to Ethernet to hit 10.1.0.1. So route may help. I don't know the route syntax right off the top of my head. I know the basics, but I'm going to go through and I'm going to let me go through and look, because I know that stuff is, I want to study. Okay. Because there's ways you can do to show the route. Okay, syntax. Okay. Okay, so route add. Okay. Okay, so that should be simple enough. And what I should have done, we can still do it just for purposes of demonstration here. I want to, let me get out. Why does that not bring up anything? Okay, out of range signal. I thought I had that switched over. I was actually looking, and I won't get that lucky, I guess, to go through. And I was hoping to have a display of the statement up right behind me where I could type on the ThinkPad. And I wish I had a keyboard. You know, we get to my morning memory. So we go through. So I think the way to show the routes. See, there's your route command. Okay. So let's do a route print. And in this case, all that means is it shows the route, the routes, excuse me, that are set up right now in the system. And the default gateway is there. You'd think that this would understand that the gateway being 10.1.3.51, the 2210, you would think that it would know that anything else 10.1.3.1 is through that gateway. But we may have to go through and we may have to. So we do route add, and it's the destination network. So in this case, 10.1.3.0. Remember, we're talking about the network address. Okay. And the mask, which is 255.255. Now we could do a global subnet as well. In other words, the effect of we see the entries in there for that net mask. See, that's what I'm saying is I don't know how a route's going to help us because that first entry there, network destination 0.0.0.0, that basically means everything that is not me go through there. The net mask being set to 0.0.0.0 is, and then it has the gateway, the 10.1.3.51, out of the interface 10.1.3.12, and that to me is a rather high metric. No, I don't see. And notice we don't see any, with the Ethernet disconnected, we don't see any of the 10.1.0 network. And actually, you guys didn't correct me as well. 10.1.0.0. 255. we want to hit the Ethernet network. 0. Okay. And the gateway IP, which doesn't change in that regard. And I don't believe that we have to give it the Ethernet. Maybe we do. Let's try that one first. 51. Because that's just changing things up here. And then the metric. And we can go 10 for the metric. I'm surprised to just see 1s and 30s for the metric there. But let's just see. Okay, we're adding a route. And I think that things like the metric, you don't have to add and it would go through and automatically specify. Let's just go see it through and see if that's bad argument. It doesn't like that 10. It says, I don't know what that gateway is, 10.1.0.51. So we're going to go through and say 3. I don't think that this is going to be any bad argument. Still a bad argument. And I don't know if we're able to do. So the gateway. Bad argument. And that's interesting. Look at the second entry there. 10.1.3.0, which is the token ring network. Okay. 255.255.255.0, gateway 10.1.3.12, and interface 10.1.3.12. The way to the token ring network being through the token ring interface. That to me locks it more into, okay, the destination 10.1.3.255. That's a loop back for the third entry. So is it going to be, I mean, we're just playing here now. I was even wondering if I was thinking that the route statement would help us. Maybe to mimic, because I want to actually get a route in there that's going to be approved. So the network destination, zero. Let's try this. Instead of 51, let's try 12, saying that, hey, if you want to access the 10.1.3.0 network, you got to go through the token ring interface. Is it going to like that? Still with a bad argument. And I don't know if we can do incremental. No. Add argument. Let's try taking the metric off the end of it. Still with the bad argument. Route, add. I do want to do the route print statement again, just to get that at the top. Okay. Get to the bottom of my okay, and that's the route that we're trying to add. And see, that should be covered. I don't think it's necessarily giving us a bad interface because we already have, in effect, the route, a more rudimentary route. Because that first entry, 0.0.0.0, and what that means is everything that is not me, the net mask 0.0.0.0, gateway, it's got the correct gateway of the 2210. It has the correct interface for the .12, being the token ring adapter. I just don't understand the effective route that we're needing appears to be in there. Although the second entry, that's the token ring network, 10.1.3.0, 255.255.255.0, gateway 10.1.3.12, interface 10.1.3.12. Because the token ring network does not need to cross the gateway, it doesn't need to cross the 2210. Now I'm throwing a lot of numbers out there. I'm trying to separate and be concise on that, to reading and just reading that out loud for diagnostic. Let me get back to the chat window. Okay, so yeah, the last argument, the metric, and I think you can normally leave the metric off, and the system figures out the metric and weighs that. The metric here is really odd. I don't know why it's putting the entries in there of 30, and it's maybe more like a scheme that if it can't figure it out otherwise, it goes to the route table and says, yeah, and it's interesting for the Juniper network virtual connect adapter. I wonder if I have some other stuff in there that's putting on top of there. It's putting up information about the wireless adapter and things like that. I really thought going into this that the IP route statement would save us. Would go through and it would give us something more, because we're going through and we're not relying on the 2210 router to do, we're going through and we're adding an additional step for the system itself to figure out, hey, I need to ping that that default gateway 10.1.3.1 with the Ethernet interface. We're able to do that. With just the token ring interface, we're not able to do that. We're not able to cross the we're not able to cross that boundary. To cross that 2210. So I was really hoping that the route statement would work, and then the default listing the default gateway there. So let's do this. And today I actually have something scheduled that I want to be a little bit briefer on the stream. I realized that I was late here as always. Really thought I'd be a little bit quicker today, but I'm plugging in the Ethernet interface. We'll give it a moment to identify that other network going live again. And let's do a route print. And we actually may have more information. Okay, why did it object to that? That wasn't with the question mark, that was with the route print. No, why did that change on me? Maybe I'm seeing just the lag here. Okay, route print. There we go. So we have the Ethernet interface plugged back in. It knows that that is effectively where it sees that going out to anything for the first entry, network destination 0.0.0.0. It has the Ethernet gateway address, and that would hit internet wise. I mean, that would go out over everything. It has a metric of 20. So it's going through and using that metric at a higher priority than the 30 entry that's right below it. The next entry is 0.0.0.0 for the network destination, netmask 0.0.0, the gateway address, and it's got the gateway, it has the 2210 address in there. And it has the interface of the token ring. Now, again, as well, if it has all the gateway address, and it really doesn't matter for a static IP address or dynamic IP address from the DHCP server. As long as we have the DHCP server handing out the right information for the gateway and everything else. So the top entry being Ethernet at a higher priority than the second entry being for the token ring. Now, and I want to reassure people too that when I went through the little ping test, I still had the Ethernet connected when I was trying to ping the 10.1.3. excuse me, 10.1.0.51, the Ethernet side. So in a sense of saying, okay, she told me that my mic was muted. I'm saying the automated voice told me my mic was muted. Okay, so network cable unplugged, and going through for the ping, again with the Ethernet interface disconnected, we're able to ping the Ethernet side of the 2210. And of course, again, not able to ping my default gateway. I was really hoping that I could go through and add an IP route, put some IP addressing information in the power term window, and go through and connect up to my AS400 over port 23 through the token ring interface network that we have up here. That we would see that bridging across the 2210. So there's still something to the routing that to the 2210, and I don't think that we can bypass that well enough or add to the ability by an IP route. And a lot of time, of course, these 2210s, they're placed in the office. You didn't want to go through and add an IP route to every system that was on that network just to make things work. You would go through and add the entries onto the router itself. I was just looking at that IP route is an ability. It goes through and can change up your network abilities for the system to better understand how it needs to route in particular ways when referencing a particular range of IP addresses or a subnet. Differently from the information it has otherwise. So the IP route can be a very good utility a lot of the time to, okay, so IP config. See, let's do the route command again. Okay, route print, we did that one. Route add, destination, mask, gateway. And of course, it supplies all the interface stuff. Okay. So route, mask, gateway, metric. And a lot of time you don't have to spell out, well, IP route is very particular. Very particular for having that, you have to have the mask entry. I'm going through and I'm looking online. I think that IP route changed slightly over time for how it was referenced. Let's go through it. Let's do it another way. Let's do a route add, and we're our destination network. Okay, tilting my head too much mutes my mic. I don't think it lost any content. Okay, so actually we have to specify that mask information. We have to the keyword mask has to be supplied. The gateway, because it has to know how it's delineated. Okay, 51. And we might be able to get by with, let's try that 0.51 first. The Ethernet side of the 2210. Metric. Let's just go again with 10 level. Interface. I'm not sure how it identifies the interface. I'm going to let it, we'll see what it's going to take with this. Okay, interface index is wrong with gateway. Does not lie on the same network. Okay. So that was actually a little bit more informative. Let's go through to the 3, metric 10. Okay, so it took that. And we can do a route print. Okay, so it added that as a second entry, figured out all the interface. And again, we have the Ethernet connection unplugged at the moment. So let's go through. And it still fails with that route. Entry in there. Okay. So still nice experimentation with going through and the route statement of seeing what that would do for us. Now, for going through and doing the delete entry, you have to go through and specify. It's just listing. Okay, route, delete. I'm not wanting to leave any entry in here that could affect us later. Okay, so route print. And we're back to the defaults that we had before. We have the Ethernet still unplugged. I think for a little bit more than an hour of time, I think that's probably a good place to end the stream. I don't know if struggling anymore on the route command. I was really hoping that'd make a night and day difference, or add just the extra little bit that we needed to help with on the 2210. But we still got to look at routing entries on it. I still have to run that software even. I've got, I talked about in the live stream last week of going through and I think I downloaded the software, but I got to go through and image that. And so I can go through and try that on the system too. Windows XP is probably a good level to try that from. And maybe that'll give a little bit more help here too. But like I say, just experimenting around with the IP route, I thought that that would make a little bit of a difference. So we're still without any resolution otherwise on the bridging token ring to Ethernet. And I'll go through and need to check further on what I can find for the battery holders and the batteries on the Cisco, running the software for the 2210 to see if we can get the routing stuff in there, to go through and wrap up a little bit more of these projects that we're working on. So, gosh. So until next time, and I've not been doing any videos during the week, been really busy. That's part of what I've got to get moving out the door here and get the stream finished, because we do have some other plans that I've got to go through for the cleaning up or getting organized. So let's just wrap up with that. This is the IBM Museum. That's all I have for now. Thank you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for attending the stream.